Let's be completely straight with each other for a second. If you're sitting there scrolling through realestate.com.au at midnight wondering if you'll ever actually own a piece of this country, you aren't crazy, and you're definitely not alone. The Australian property market in 2026 is a different beast entirely. It looks nothing like the market our parents bought into, and frankly, it looks nothing like the market of even 2 or 3 years ago. But here's the problem. Most people are flying blind. They're chasing a vibe rather than a number. They don't know which city actually fits their salary or how long the save and sacrifice journey is really going to take. G'day everyone, I'm Luke and welcome back to Luke Invest Australia. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the 2026 reality. By the end of this video, you'll know the exact dollar figure you need for a deposit in every major capital, the hidden costs that catch everyone off guard, and the 3 smartest moves you can make right now to get your keys years ahead of schedule. Buckle up, because the numbers might surprise you, some for the better, and some, well, you might want a coffee for those. Let's get into it. First, the big picture. As of May 2026, the median house price across our combined capital cities has officially cracked the $1 million mark. That's a milestone nobody really wanted to celebrate. But averages are dangerous. They hide the truth. Buying in Sydney and buying in Darwin right now is like comparing a luxury yacht to a sturdy tinny. They both get you on the water, but the entry price is on a different planet. In 2026, we're seeing a 3-speed economy. We've got the runaway leaders like Perth and Brisbane, the steady stalwarts like Adelaide and Sydney, and the cool-down zones like Hobart. Before we look at the cities, remember the gold standard, the 20% deposit. While we'll talk about the 5% schemes later, the 20% deposit is still how you avoid lender's mortgage insurance, or LMI, and get the best rates from the Big Four. Let's start with the big one. Sydney. If Sydney was a mountain, it'd be Everest, and the oxygen is getting very thin at the top. The median house price in Sydney right now is a staggering $1,600,311. If you're aiming for that traditional 20% deposit, you're looking at $320,000. But wait, it gets heavier. You can't just have $320K, you've got to account for the silent killers: stamp duty, conveyancing, building inspections, and moving costs. In NSWS, for a house at this price, you're looking at another $60,000 to $80,000 in fees. Your real target for Sydney? Between $380,000 and $400,000 in cold hard cash. To service that loan without living on 2-cent noodles, a solo buyer needs to be pulling in about $232,000 a year. For a couple, you're looking at $85,000 each. This is why the Sydney dream has shifted. In 2026, the conversation isn't about a 3-bedroom house in Surrey Hills, it's more about a unit in Parramatta or moving an hour out to the Central Coast or the Blue Mountains, where the math actually starts to make sense. Now let's look at Melbourne. This is interesting. The gap between Sydney and Melbourne is wider now than it's been in 2 decades. The median Melbourne house sits at $972,734. Your 20% deposit comes in at $194,547. Once you add those extra buying costs, your total savings goal is roughly $230,000 to $250,000. For income, a solo buyer needs about $145,000, or a couple needs about $85,000 each. Melbourne has actually become the value play of the eastern states. Because prices have stayed relatively stable compared to the north, smart first home buyers are flocking back. Plus, the Victorian government still offers some solid stamp duty exemptions for properties under $600,000. If you're willing to look at the outer suburbs or a townhouse, Melbourne is arguably the most livable price point for professionals right now. If you're in Brisbane or Perth, I feel you. You guys have had a wild ride. 5 years ago, Brisbane was Sydney's affordable cousin. Not anymore. The median house price is now $1,222,963. That's up 19% in just the last year. Your 20% deposit? $244,581. Total savings target, $290,000. Why is this happening? It's a perfect storm. The 2032 Olympics hype, massive interstate migration, and a chronic shortage of new builds. If you've been waiting for Brisbane prices to cool off, the data suggests you'll be waiting a long time. Then we have Perth, the runaway leader. Perth has seen growth of nearly 26% in a single year. The median house price hit $1,087,572. In 2020, you could get a house in Perth for half that. Your 20% deposit in Perth is now $217,514, requiring a solo income of around $147,000. The mining boom, interstate investors, and a lack of supply have transformed Perth from the bargain basement to a premium market. Let's round out the capitals. Adelaide has been the quiet achiever. The median is $1,006,099. You need $201,220 for a 20% deposit. Solo income, $143,000. With the defense industry boom around Osborne, Adelaide isn't the sleepy town it used to be. It's a high-demand hub. Canberra, the bush capital, is sitting at $1,049,789. Deposit needed, $209,958. Income, $151,000. Interestingly, the Canberra market has been fairly flat, meaning you actually have a bit more breathing room to negotiate than you do in Perth. Then we have Hobart. Hobart has actually cooled off. The median is $796,682, needing a deposit of $159,336. If you can work remotely and don't mind the cold, Tassie is one of the few places where prices are still below their 2022 peak. Finally, the entry point, Darwin. The median is $732,769. A 20% deposit is $146,554. You can buy here on a solo income of $111,000. It's the most affordable capital left, and for many, it's the only way onto the ladder in 2026. Now, those 20% numbers are intimidating, I get it. $400K for a Sydney deposit? That feels impossible. But here is where the game has changed. Since October 1st, 2025, the federal government expanded the 5% deposit scheme. They've removed the income caps and the waitlists. If you're eligible first home buyer, you can get in with just 5%, and the government effectively guarantees the rest, so you don't pay lender's mortgage insurance. They also lifted the price caps. In Sydney, you can now use this scheme for houses up to $1.5 million. In Brisbane, it's up to $1 million. But there's a catch. A smaller deposit means a bigger loan. A bigger loan means higher monthly repayments and way more interest paid over 30 years. You're trading time for cash. If you get in now with 5%, you start building equity sooner, but you'll feel the pinch in your monthly budget. There's also the First Home Super Saver Scheme. This is criminally underused. You can salary sacrifice up to $15,000 a year, up to $50,000 total, into your super. Because that money is taxed at a lower rate, the government is effectively giving you a boost to your savings. If you aren't doing this, you're leaving free money on the table. So how do you actually hit these targets? The people who save a deposit in 2 years instead of 10 years don't do it by just cutting out smashed avocado. They do 3 things differently. 1. Automation. The day your pay hits, 20% needs to disappear. Not at the end of the month, at the start. Move it to a high-interest account or your FHSS account before you even have a chance to think about spending it. If you don't see it, you don't miss it. 2. Aggressive income growth. You cannot budget your way to a $200,000 deposit on a $60,000 salary. It doesn't work. The people winning right now are those taking on side hustles, upskilling for a promotion, or switching employers to get that 20% pay rise. In 2026, your income is your greatest wealth building tool. Use it. 3. Geographic and type flexibility. The buyer who is only willing to buy a house in one specific suburb will always lose to the buyer who is willing to look at 3 different cities, or the buyer who considers a well-located townhouse instead of a standalone house. Be flexible on the first property so you can be picky with the second one. Look, the Australian property market in 2026 is tough. There's no sugarcoating it. But it is not impossible. It just requires a better plan than the generations before us had. You need to know your number, choose your city, and use every government scheme available to you. If this breakdown helped you see the path a little more clearly, do me a massive favor and hit that like button and subscribe to Luke Invest Australia. It helps the channel grow and lets me keep making these deep dives for you. Comment below, which city are you targeting and what's your biggest hurdle right now? I'll be jumping in to answer as many as I can. I'm Luke, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers!